Thank you for joining me, Diana Master, on NMH at 1, where we highlight the news making waves in Namibia and beyond, ranging from current affairs, community stories, sports, and economic news. Coming up in this broadcast, Japan ready to pump 28 billion Namibian dollars into Namibian mining. Millions go hungry while food is wasted, UN Secretary General says. And 13,000 evacuated in Germany after World War II bomb found. Remember to follow all our programs on WWII.com or DSTV channel 285 and GoTV channel 25 in Namibia. Stick around, we'll be right back with the midday news update. Five people, including a police officer, have died in violent protests related to the taxi strike in Cape Town in neighboring South Africa. This comes after a week-long strike was called by the South African National Taxi Council. The strike was in response to what the drivers called heavy-handed tactics by law enforcement authorities. The UK issued a South Africa travel warning after the strike was listed as a high-security threat. The taxi strike is expected to continue after negotiations broke down between Santaco and the provincial government led by the Democratic Alliance. Meanwhile, Transport Minister Sindiswe Chikunga has ordered the immediate release of minibus taxis impounded by the city authorities. Visual News highlights local stories from across Namibia right after the break. Stay with NMH at 1. Let's get into today's visual news. Coastal High School Principal Calvin Martin speaks about how Coastal High Technical School demonstrated their commitment to educating by welcoming hearing impaired learners to their basic pre-vocational training course. Let's have a look.
This year, for the first time, we have taken in hearing impaired learners in the woodwork course and the fashion and clothing course. So we have 6 learners in total, and we're also fortunate that the ministry is supporting us in this regard at the school with 2 language interpreters. So they have their teacher, and then we have a language interpreter that moves with these learners to, if they go for their respective subjects. Now you have to take into consideration they have the trade subject, and this year we offer 4 trade subjects also. It's fashion and clothing, woodwork, food preparation, and then the agricultural science. Now for the first year in grade 8 we have now hearing impaired learners, and 2 sign language interpreters have been appointed to assist these learners also to get the necessary support and the assistance. And they are doing 6 subjects. It's the skill subject, and then we have communication, which we can say that is your language. We have entrepreneurship, and then we have numeracy, that is like your mathematics. And we have work orientation, that's a combination of your history, geography, life skills. And then we have also information communication technology that is important for these learners that we do offer to them. So those are the 6 subjects that they take. 70% of the time we allocate to the skill subject, and the other 30% of the time to the other subjects, the support subjects. Now, we had requests also from parents and from the Swakopmund Primary School who has this special unit at their school. They have these learners, and we started with the basic pre-voc stream in 2022, and then they asked, is there a possibility that you can take these learners in as well? And I said, yes, there's a possibility. And if we get the sign language interpreters, then we will be able to assist them. Regional office provided that to us. We're very grateful for that. And now we can cater for them as well.
After the break, the Namibian Sun leads us into the newspaper review segment. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Active Kids, a daily TV show that sparks creativity, learning, and fun for young minds. With exciting activities and lessons, Active Kids inspires curiosity and a love for learning.
New face to the 15.
The perfect mix of play and education. Don't miss out on the fun. Tune into Active Kids on NTV every weekday at 10 o'clock and let the adventure begin.
Thank you for staying with NMH at 1. We now take a look at what the lead stories are in Namibia's daily newspapers. Starting us off with the Namibian Sun front page, with little over a year to go before the national polls, one of the country's oldest political formations faces an existential threat due to ongoing factional battles that have taken center stage at the WWII Traditional Authority. Senior National Unity Democratic Organization leaders have since cautioned that the party risks not only losing its 2 seats in parliament, but also its existence if the impasse is not resolved by the time the country goes to the polls. The various chiefs within the WWII community have major influence on Nudo's politics. The party's constitution makes provision for any traditional chief who is a Nudo member to serve on its national council, its highest decision-making body between congresses. Onto the paper's page 3, Namibian agricultural unions have collectively presented their input to cabinet on various issues, including late payments to producers, the closure of abattoirs in the northern communal areas, and a proposed structure for Meatco. This input was presented on the 2nd of August with representatives from Meatco's management in attendance, along with several ministers, deputy ministers, executive directors, officials from the Development Bank of Namibia, and other high-ranking officials. On Republicane's front page, the Japan Oil, Gas and Metals National Corporation is going to help Namibia to conduct a survey of rare earth materials. The Japanese Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry, Yasutoshi Nishimura, says the information will be used to draw up a master plan for the establishment of an industry for rare earth metals in Namibia. JOGMEC has been a partner in the Lofdal Heavy Rare Earth Metals project outside Gorikas since 2020. JOGMEC is gradually buying more shares in the project as its development progresses, aiming to own 40% by next year and half of the project by 2028. Moving over to the paper's page 3, the country's tax agency has tightened its grip on the Namibia Industrial Development Agency over outstanding taxes. Namibian Sun has reliably established that the state-owned enterprise was forced to settle on a payment plan, lest the Namibia Revenue Agency take what is due to it directly from the company's bank account. Although NIDA did not confirm the exact amount, it is understood that the country's industrial agency owes the taxman 26 million Namibian dollars in outstanding taxes. On its front page, the Algemene Zeitung today leads with the apparent overpopulation of seals along the Namibian coast, which is causing concerns among the fishing sector. The Standing Parliamentary Committee on Natural Resources is now attempting to develop solutions which could possibly address the issue, and so various proposals have been made. This includes the idea of turning seal meat into a delicacy. In the meantime, the annual seal culling has started on the 1st of July, allowing for 80,000 young animals and 6,000 bulls to be culled. On page 3 of the Algemene Zeitung, you can today read up about the Namibian Minister of Information, Dr. Pea Moshelenga, who has met with his Botswana counterpart in Gaborone. They intend to eliminate roaming fees between the two countries and also seek to exchange experiences in the field of technology and data storage. The Namibian minister has used the opportunity to emphasize to his colleague the importance of press freedom, something that seems to have been disregarded by the Botswana State Security, which recently apparently wrongly arrested 2 journalists in Botswana. That brings us to the end of the first half of our newspaper review segment. We get along with the second half after the break.
eTicket, your online ticket solution for events and event marketing, bringing you ease of mind and making sure that your event gets out there. For more information, contact events@nmh.com.na.
Let's get into the second half of our newspaper review. The Namibian newspaper on its front page reports that clinical supplies worth 20 million Namibian dollars kept at the Rundu medical store are at risk of going to waste due to a dysfunctional cooling system at the hospital. This was recently revealed by the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Health. The medical store at Rundu caters for the Kavango East and West regions. Rundu Intermediate Hospital has ongoing challenges in repairing the cooling system of the facility, which broke about 2 years ago. According to the paper's page 3, a teenage boy was allegedly brutally assaulted by security guards and sustained head injuries after trying to sneak a friend into the Inanna Expo on Friday evening. Oangwena Police Crime Investigations Coordinator Sakaria Amakali has confirmed that the police are investigating the incident. The New Era's lead story highlights challenges faced by the Rundu Intermediate Hospital in their service provision efforts, and these include personnel shortages as well as lack of ambulances and medical equipment. These revelations were made by the hospital superintendent Dr. Jean Kalala Kabangu during a visit by the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Health and Social Welfare on Monday. Despite recently being given the status of an intermediate hospital, the upgrade was never accompanied by a requisite staff complement to cater for the new functions. Onto the paper's page 3, there are calls to introduce seal meat to the Namibian market for human consumption as a measure to control and sustainably harvest the country's seal quota, which is underutilized. These were some of the options advanced during a consultative meeting with the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Natural Resources and stakeholders in the fishing industry in the harbour town of Walvis Bay last week. The meeting follows a parliamentary motion on Namibia's increasing seal population and its dire ramifications of the fishing sector. Moving over to Market Watch, Johannesburg, a stock exchange-listed Nedbank Group reported a 10% increase in headline earnings to 7.3 billion rand for the first half of 2023. The increase in headline earnings was underpinned by strong revenue growth, including associate income of 14% and good expense management, enabling pre-provisioning operating profit growth of 22%. This was partially offset by a 57% increase in the impairment charge, particularly in the retail consumer banking segment in South Africa. Now, more than 780 million people are going hungry, despite the fact that nearly 1/3 of all food produced is lost or wasted. An update on the story coming up next as we move over to economic news after the break.
Welcome to My.NA Cars, your ultimate destination for everything automotive.
I am your host, Diana Master. Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Discover the latest models, innovative technologies, and expert insights from our passionate hosts. Learn essential maintenance tips and get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the automotive industry. Don't miss My.NA Cars on NTV every Thursday at 2100 hours. Tune in and ignite your passion for automobiles.
In today's economic news, more than 780 million people are going hungry, despite the fact that nearly 1/3 of all food produced is lost or wasted. This is according to the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who said more than 3 billion people cannot afford healthy diets, while 2 billion are overweight or obese, and 462 million are underweight. He made these remarks at the UN Food Systems Summit, which took place last month at the headquarters of the Food and Agricultural Organization in Rome. Guterres said it is outrageous that in a world of plenty, people continue to suffer and die from hunger. 2 years ago, the Food Systems Summit helped shine a spotlight on a core truth that global food systems are broken and billions of people are paying the price, he said. Meanwhile, unsustainable food production, packaging, and consumption are feeding the climate crisis, generating 1/3 of all greenhouse gas emissions, using 70% of the world's fresh water, and driving biodiversity loss on epic scale, he said. Guterres said there is more than enough food in the world to go around and more than enough money to fund efficient and sustainable food systems to feed the world while supporting decent work for those to grow the food we eat. Now let's take a look at the economic indicators, also proudly brought to you by Bank Vintuk. The Namibian dollar trades at 24.05 to the British pound, at 20.71 to the euro, while 2 Namibian dollars and 62 cents buys you 1 Chinese yuan. Capricorn Investment Group Limited and First Rand Namibia Limited took a dip of 0.10% and 0% respectively. Local index took a dip of 0.01%, while overall index closed also took a downturn of 0.01%. Looking at commodities, gold and Brent crude oil are up. Brent crude oil by 0.74%, meaning it's trading at $86.92 per barrel. Stick around, we return with news from Africa after this short commercial break.
Neo Paints has established a 67-year Namibian legacy, creating personalized paint solutions that blend quality and innovation for the Namibian people. We pride ourselves in being a 100% Namibian-owned company, investing in our country and our people by employing and empowering true Namibians. With every brushstroke, Neo Paints commits to our quality guarantee and always delivering a coat of excellence. At Neo Paints, we always stay true to our country. We are as Namibian as you.
We now expand beyond Namibia's borders to give you the latest news from the African continent here on NMH at 1, and later on we'll bring you international news from the rest of the globe. An often impenetrable logjam of trucks laden with coal at South Africa's crossing with Mozambique has brought chaos to a sleepy border town. Elephants escaping from the nearby Kruger National Park often cause the biggest commotion at Komati Port. These days, residents check their CCTV cameras on their phones at barbecues on the weekend. The congestion created opportunities for criminals who saw drivers stranded in the queue for days on end as easy targets after nightfall. Robberies, theft, and assaults spread from the highway to town. Road accidents increased and the trucks began trundling through in ever greater numbers on their way to Maputo Port, where their cargoes are loaded into ships and sent around the world after South Africa became one of Europe's main alternatives to Russian coal, following Moscow's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. The procession continues even though European fears of an energy crisis have faded for now. Suppliers are finding new buyers in India and China, and miners of chrome used to manufacture stainless steel are increasingly using the same routes. Residents want their quiet life back, and for companies including Glencore, Sasol, Thungela Resources, and Exxaro Resources to move exports from pit to ports entirely by freight trains. Like the majority of state-owned companies in South Africa's most industrialized nation, Transnet Freight Rail is crumbling. Volumes transported on its network have declined by nearly a third over the past 5 years because of issues that include poor management and idle locomotives, cable theft, and aging tracks. Getting into our next story, 2 months after they stopped sending critical food aid to Ethiopia over concerns donations were being diverted from those in need, the UN's World Food Programme has decided to resume supplies in one region. Tigray, in the north of the country, is in dire need after a 2-year civil war which ended last November that led to the deaths of tens of thousands of civilians. Incremental supplies have begun in Tigray under a new monitoring process, the WFP said on Tuesday, first with 15 kg pre-packed bags of wheat to just over 100,000 people. Millions of people across the country are at risk of severe food shortage. US aid, which also cut food supplies to Ethiopia around the same time as WFP, told journalists on Tuesday that it had no plans to resume operations. Stick around for international news coming up after the break. Around 13,000 people have been told to temporarily leave their homes in the western Germany city of Düsseldorf after a Second World War-era U.S. bomb was found, firefighters said on Monday. The one-ton United States-made bomb was to be defused overnight after it was discovered during work in the area near the city zoo, the fire brigade said. The ground in German cities remains riddled with unexploded ordnance that is regularly discovered on construction sites 78 years after the Second World War. In 2017, the discovery of a 1.4-ton bomb in Frankfurt forced the evacuation of 65,000 people. In December 2021, a Second World War bomb exploded at a construction site near Munich station, injuring 4 people and disrupting rail traffic. Getting into our next story, a batch of contaminated common cold syrup manufactured by an Indian company has been flagged by the World Health Organization, WHO, the latest in a series of warnings by the United Nations agency about substandard medicines from the country. On Monday, the WHO said the manufacturer and the marketer have not provided guarantees on the safety and quality of the product. The United Nations agency said the batch of the syrup, branded Cold Out and found in Iraq, was manufactured by Force India Laboratories for WWII Pharma. It had higher than acceptable limits of contaminants, diethylene and ethylene glycol, chemicals that can be fatal and lead to acute kidney failure in dozens of children. The batch had 0.25% of diethylene glycol and 2.1% of ethylene glycol when the acceptable safety limit for both is up to 0.10%, WHO said in its medical product alert. The alert about Cold Out is the latest warning issued in recent months about contaminated cough syrup sold worldwide. 4 types of medicine made in India caused the deaths of at least 70 children in Gambia last year, according to the country's Presidential Commission of Inquiry. In October 2022, Gambia recalled a number of medicines following the deaths of children, including all cough and cold syrups in circulation, as well as products manufactured by the Indian firm Maiden Pharmaceuticals, where the contaminated syrups came from. That brings us to the end of our international news. Stick around for local sports news coming up after this break.
Hello and welcome to today's Sports Rep Show.
I am your host, Jesse Jackson Kauraika. In replay, Namibia, who had won the toss for the first time on this tour.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, starting off with tennis news, both on the WTA for women's and
Let's get into our local sports news. A leading northern-based boxing stable, MTC Kilimanjaro Boxing Club, is gearing up to host another thrilling boxing bonanza this month. The boxing bonanza, scheduled for the 26th of August in Umuthia, will feature amateur boxing matches. Namibian cycling officials have hailed the performance of Vera Lusa and Alex Miller after they finished 7th and 30th respectively at the UCI MTB Cross Country World Championships in Scotland on Sunday. Namibia's Commonwealth youth team has acquired 2 bronze medals at the current 2023 Games in Trinidad and Tobago. The Games began on the 4th of August, have seen Namibia winning the medals in triathlon and discus. We'll now take a quick ad break and return with international sports news.
We are so excited to be kickstarting your morning with entertainment. Everything was happening during this past weekend.
Yes.
Exciting news.
Wow, no, she was killing it already.
In my opinion, I don't see anything wrong with him serving the full term.
As well as keeping you informed on the issues that you need to know happening in and around our country.
Starting off international sports news, Caroline Wozniacki said returning to elite level tennis after more than 3 years out felt like riding a bike after a break, and there was no stopping the former world number 1 at the Canadian Open once she hit top gear on Tuesday. Mamelodi Sundowns and Kaizer Chiefs is set to face one another in a heavyweight DStv Premiership clash at the Loftus Versfeld Stadium in Tshwane this afternoon. The match starts at 3 p.m. The Springboks have made a clear choice in selecting a squad of 33 players that were all fit and ready to play on Saturday, including captain Siya Kolisi and prop Oxenchair, when they selected the World Cup squad for the tournament in France next month. If you're just joining us, this is NMH at 1, and we'll get into the highlights from today's broadcast right after this.
The Agenda is a weekly national affairs interview program hosted every Sunday by Namibian Sun editor Toivon Jabela, featuring a panel of high-profile newsmakers, analysts and experts. The Agenda aims to reach high-end news consumers seeking informed understanding of national issues. This show is broadcasted on NTV, 1up2.com and the Namibia Media Holdings Facebook platform. The Agenda focuses on interviews where we put the nation in the hot seat. Contact Agenda at synergy.com.na to get your product and service in the hot seat. The Agenda, focused on today's conversation.
You're watching NMH at 1, and if you're just joining us, here are the news highlights from today's broadcast. 2 months after they stopped sending critical food aid to Ethiopia over concerns that donations were being diverted from those in need, the UN's World Food Programme has decided to resume supplies in one region. Around 13,000 people have been told to temporarily leave their homes in the western Germany city of Dusseldorf after a Second World War-era US bomb was found, firefighters said on Monday. In sport, a leading northern-based boxing stable, MTC Kilimanjaro Boxing Club, is gearing up to host another thrilling boxing bonanza for 26 August in Umuthia. Those have been your highlights. Remember to tune in every weekday at 1 p.m. to spend your lunch hour with NMH at 1, catching up on the latest news in Namibia and beyond. That is it from all of us here in studio, and we do wish you a lovely Wednesday ahead.